Let's watch, has
1
Trump
year
killed
and
the
finally
OECD
that
global
good
minimum tax? I
badge.
don't even know what that means. Trump has so much aura. He does have aura, it's true. Von der Leyen, Merz, England guy who's probably gone 2 years. Trump, don't know. Macron, Meloni, don't know.
G7 released a statement announcing that they'd agree to an exemption for American multinationals from the OECD's new global minimum corporation tax,
Oh, I hate tofu,
which aims to force big multinational companies to pay an effective tax rate of at least 15%. Now, obviously, this threatens to upend the entire project, which looks set to be the first genuine effort at international tax cooperation, and to which
Nice. Oh my god, that's super good. That's very important. Oh wow, I didn't know what this topic is. Long story short, right? Everybody knows. A lot of big companies pay no taxes. Then you can only beat them if everybody internationally works together. OECD means for Organization of Economic Cooperation Development. It's an international organization that works to build better policies for better lives. It provides a forum for governments to collaborate and develop policy standards aimed at promoting sustainable economic growth and improving the well-being of the people around the world.
137 countries have already signed up. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the global minimum corporation tax, how Trump forced an exemption from the G7, and what happens next.
If everybody would work together to tax people correctly, that would be huge. Fuck the corpos, man.
Who's the worst politician right now?
Trump as a puppet of oligarchs, he doesn't want that. So I think this video is going to say he's going to try to stop that because he's a puppet of the rich.
Now, here are our thoughts, and argue with us on our podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard. Find it on the TLDR Podcast YouTube channel or in your favorite podcast app. So the fundamental problem that the OECD's minimum corporation tax is trying to solve is really quite simple. In the modern age, it's very easy for big corporations to move to different countries.
Yeah, when I do my taxes, I have to do them mostly from Ireland because as a YouTuber, you get your money from Google Ireland because they pay almost no taxes there.
This both allows them to avoid paying tax in their country of origin and creates a race to the bottom among states who have to compete with one another to offer the lowest corporation tax
bullshit,
in order to encourage corporations to move in or discourage
They
corporations
should fuck up Ireland for
from
this shit.
moving
You
out.
should
Now, of
be
course,
really
a
hard
handful
about
of countries have done very well out of this. We're looking at you, Ireland, by offering super low corporation tax rates and thereby attracting big multinationals that make so much profit that even if they're paying a low rate on those profits, it's still great for the tax havens hosting them. However, for the vast majority of countries, this has meant lower corporation tax revenue and undermined their ability to effectively set corporation tax rates, creating a paradoxical situation where raising corporation tax can actually result in lower revenues and vice versa. Now, this problem has been around for decades, if not centuries. The League of Nations actually discussed the need for coordinated tax policies way back in the 20s, but it's always been difficult to fix. In lots of ways, it's a classic collective action problem. In the aggregate, states would be better off if they cooperated on corporation tax, which would allow them to maximize tax revenues and avoid.
Dude, that's corporation tax globally, and I pay 43%, a civilian, a citizen, 43%. One tax, I pay more than that. You gotta be fucking kidding me, Alter. I mean, I get it, corporate creates jobs and opportunity, I fucking get it, man, but...
a revenue-squeezing race to the bottom, but there's always an incentive for would-be tax havens to cheat, knowing that offering a lower tax rate to mobile corporations could make them more money, at least until someone else offered an even lower rate. In 1992, for instance, the Rudling Committee proposed a 30% minimum corporate tax rate for the EU, but nothing really happened. There was then a renewed effort.
You have to tell me though, man, the rich probably, they have the agents everywhere and they're lobbying, so this never ever happens.
But in 2001, when the Commission published a communique arguing that intra-EU tax cooperation would both result in higher revenues and help reduce single market frictions. But while a majority of EU member states expressed support for the idea in 2004, the proposal ultimately didn't go anywhere, in large part due to the reluctance of low-tax states like Ireland, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. However, in 2019, the OECD, which today has 38 member countries, including 22 from the EU, began calling for a global minimum tax rate, which was enthusiastically picked up by Germany and France, who came up with a concrete proposal involving a two-pillar system. Pillar 1 is basically intended for massive tech companies and aims to redistribute taxes from tax havens to those countries where they have the most users. And Pillar 2, which basically sets a
How could you ever be against that, right?
minimum 15% corporation tax rate for corporations and their subsidiaries. And importantly, allows other countries to impose top-up taxes on those corporations if they find a way out of it. So, for example, if Ireland refused to implement the 15% minimum rate, allowing, let's say, Amazon to get away with paying less taxes, other countries could impose higher taxes on Amazon's operations in their country in order to push Amazon's effective rate up to 15%.
But wouldn't Amazon find a way to outjump that? No, they're not really. That's fucking genius.
Now, Pillar 2 has drawn most of the media's attention, and is generally what people are talking about when they refer to the global minimum tax. Now, we should note here that 15% really isn't very high. It's lower than most countries' pre-existing corporation tax rates, and much lower than what many small businesses already pay. Pillar 1 also only applies to multinationals earning over 20 billion euros, and with profitability higher than 10%.
Which is fair.
While Pillar 2 only applies to multinationals with earnings over 750 million euros, and more specifically is aimed at profit shifting, which is when multinationals send their money between their subsidiaries in different countries to minimize tax payments. Nonetheless, the basic rationale is the same, and the OECD estimated that it will result in about $150 billion in new tax revenues globally. Anyway, in April 2020...
And that's always my point. Politicians always tell us we don't have enough money. The budget. Trump does a lot, Merz. The money is there. It's everywhere there in the top 1%. Once again, this is a fact of life. The German Association of... tax attorneys has estimated 200 billion euros a year are gone from the German budget because of people not doing their taxes correctly and cheating and stuff. 200 billion. Should we attack that? No, we gotta go for the little baker guy. The money is there, man. They just gotta fucking do something about it.
The Biden administration gave the proposal the green light, and by the end of the year, 137 countries had signed up to it. While no country has yet implemented Pillar 1, about 40 countries have since implemented Pillar 2. However, Trump's return to the White House put the whole project in jeopardy. On January 20th, Trump issued an executive order announcing that the US had withdrawn from Pillars 1 and 2. And then...
Why? I would love to hear the explanation. He is a puppet of oligarchy. Come on. I would love to hear why. Maybe they tell.
Took things a step further with his One Big Beautiful Bill, which originally included a provision known as Section 899, which meant that if a country tried to impose top-up taxes on an American multinational, the US would impose revenge taxes.
Do we have to say anything more? Anything more? It's a fucking oligarchy. This is insanity. It makes total sense he does that, because it helps him and his friends. I would do the same if I was him. But you cannot fucking wear a MAGA hat anymore and be like, he's gonna fucking fix us.
On individuals and companies from that
and the facts are overwhelming.
Country operating in the US. This was clearly a hot topic at the recent G7 meeting, when the other 6 members eventually agreed to exempt US companies from the minimum tax rate in exchange.
But they are the biggest ones, Amazon, Apple, etc. Oh, man.
For Trump dropping Section 899. This will now be discussed with the OECD, but whatever they say, it's pretty clear that Trump has no intention of signing up, and will threaten any country that tries to impose top-up taxes. Now, this was pretty poor form from the...
Dude, I reached a point in my life, and the facts are there, Trump is the enemy of the people, man. The enemy of the middle and lower class.
Rest of the G7. Not only is this exemption put the entire project at risk, Section 899 probably wasn't going to survive.
But they all are. Democrats are not better. I know.
Anyway, given that Wall Street opposes it on the grounds that it could undermine both the dollar's reserve status and America's place as the home of international finance. And it doesn't even really seem like a good deal for Trump either. While this exemption might be good news for US multinationals like Meta, Apple, and Alphabet, who are most likely to be affected by this new tax, it's not good news for the US taxpayer. After all, one of the reasons that Biden agreed to sign up to this deal is that
Biden did sign up. Oh, Biden, he's so bad. Oh my God, I hate Joe Biden. Oh God.
At the moment, American companies use profit shifting to avoid paying taxes in the US too. Many American tech and pharma companies, for instance, currently pay more taxes in Ireland than America. And this global minimum tax rate is supposed to remedy this.
Did you even know about this?
Ultimately, this is a pretty depressing outcome for anyone who wants to reassert national sovereignty over multinational...
That is so crazy. And all because of one guy. My point is always just, dude, Trump is elected, all the best to him. Fucking hell. I even think the guy is a very important historical figure. But it's just insane to me how a single human being can do this much damage, man. How a single guy, it's same with Putin and Hitler and stuff like it's a single guy that has so much power over the global global future. And my point is just always this technocratic point. No one should have this power. No one should have this much power. It's too much power in a single hand. It's like when the Space Marine Legions got put into chapters, man. It should be split more. It should be councils. I think in a complex world like this, there should be no single leader anymore. That can do stuff like this with his decrees, and that can, most importantly, to me, the most autocratic thing in the USA, that he can appoint Supreme Court judges, which is insanity.
No corporations, or at least make them pay more tax. After all, this project was decades in the making, intended as a partial solution to a centuries-old problem, and perhaps the only silver lining here, at least for anyone who supports this proposal, is that the UN is currently working on a similar project. Although it's hard to imagine Trump signing up to that one.
I'm gonna say it's nice to hear we still have politicians that push out bills like that. That's good.
Either. All of this plays into a broader feeling coming out of America at the moment. At one time, the US seemed to be a steady, stabilizing force in global politics. But it seems that those days are over, with American influence, popularity, and dominance on the decline. So in the next issue of our magazine, Too Long, we're discussing
victory at last year's election. A consensus has emerged that the Democrats need to move back to the centre. There's a pretty widespread sense that the Democrats had moved, in some sense, too far left over the past couple of years, as evidenced by the fact that self-described moderates swung heavily to Trump, and Democratic...
But I always wonder, what does that really mean in detail? What does it mean to go left? Is it that you put woke people on a stage? I would like to hear deeper things. What made them left in policies?
Operatives have spent the past few months trying to convince the party to give up on quote-unquote identity politics and refocus on the working class. However, not only has this proved surprisingly difficult...
What if the only thing they did is to be identity politics? That's the only thing? But what, like, policy-wise?
With Democrats struggling to agree on a party line for issues like tariffs, there's also more and more data suggesting that left-wing candidates can succeed electorally. Not least Zoran Mamdani's recent victory in the New York City mayoral primary.
Who's this? Zoran? Who's that? Zoran. What is he, a Democrat? I know nothing about this. Who's this guy?
So in this video, we're going to explain why more and more people think the Democrats should actually stick to their guns on the left, and whether it's actually a good idea. So there are several reasons why moving to the left could be a winning strategy for the Democrats, with the most recent and perhaps glaring example being the New York City mayoral election. New Yorkers voted in the Democratic primary for mayor...
But it's New York. Isn't New York very left-wing anyway?
...on Tuesday, and delivered a stunning victory to 33-year-old Democratic Socialist candidate Zoran Mamdani, who defeated party heavyweight and former governor Andrew Cuomo, who had huge name recognition, financial resources, and endorsements. Wow. The primary election is sort of a microcosm of...
I'm predicting, the debates were insane, okay. I'm predicting, I might be ultra wrong, I'm predicting in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see the rise of socialism, but also fascism. We already see the right is growing very strong because people are very, very frustrated. Germany, almost 25% AfD, Meloni, we see it in America. But I also think there will be a counter-revolution next 20 years where you see more and more people going left-wing party. And I don't mean this left-wing that the rich are selling you, this fucking wokeness and my kids are gay. No, I mean like, I feel like I'm predicting we're going back, hopefully, to the good old left of, hey, let's do unions, let's do fucking minimum wage, worker rights, middle class rights, fuck the rich. I think people will be more aware about this now. It's happening in Germany already. The left-wing party has a massive surge right now. History repeats itself. I fully agree with you. It's just history repeating itself. Lisa was listening to a podcast and she told me about this. There was this podcast and they suggested this idea that it's history, it's human behavior, that you have a rise of conservatism like we have right now, but then this gets countered again historically and logically by another counter again. And you know why I think that is? I'm going to be a bit polemic here. The people always look for a savior. They always did. Life sucks. Everything is bad. Please, Trump, AfD, save me. Then they realize they ain't fucking saving you. So then they go, Bernie, left wing, save me. But then they also don't really save you, right? And it's just this big back and forth. I will think the left is gonna be interesting the next 20 years. Gonna be interesting.
The wider battle for the Democratic Party, as it pitched a fresh-faced progressive against the party's old guard establishment. Mamdani's campaign, which took him from polling as low as 1% to securing the Democratic nomination, focused on lowering the cost of living for New Yorkers.
Don't mess with the Zoran.
With policies like free buses, rent freezes for stabilized apartments.
And again, this is so mentally ill to me. This shit is considered communist or socialist, where I believe, and I know I'm crazy, this is basic human decency, like fucking childcare. taxing the wealthy, trying to make buses free to make CO2. Dude, is this fucking Stalin? Really? This is basic shit. And it's insane that this makes you called a fucking communist.
Universal childcare.
I think it's a trick. It's a trick from the leaders and the rich. They want to make people like this look communist. So like, don't vote for this guy. He's a communist. He's a communist, man.
And higher taxes on the
Red
wealthy.
Scare from the 50s,
but whilst
bro.
also maintaining progressive positions on cultural issues. He coupled this with unapologetic attacks on Cuomo, who was seeking a political comeback 4 years after resigning the governorship amid sexual harassment allegations.
Batshit insane?
But
Why?
Mamdani's campaign and its creative messaging was also incredibly optimistic, which helped him generate genuine excitement and an organic groundswell of support from a racially and economically diverse coalition that beat out Cuomo's political machine.
He supports
As one former...
What a piece of shit. That dude is insane. Look at this guy, 0 sources, 100%. Yeah, show us why he's insane. I'm legit interested. I know nothing. Why is this guy insane? What's happened in New York City is blaringly loud messages to those in the Democratic establishment who still cling to old politics. This is something you need to kind of see in the Democratic Party, right? That they actually have like a candidate, a counter to Trump, but they have nothing, right? They're just...
Obama aide put it.
Man.
What happened in
Looks
New York
like,
City is a blaringly loud message to those in the Democratic establishment who still cling to old politics, recite focus group talking points, and are too afraid to say what needs to be said. Whether the party learns from this experience or doubles down and closes ranks remains to be seen. But don't be surprised if we see more and more insurgent campaigns like Mamdani's challenging big names in the coming election cycles. Yeah. And if we look at the national level too, other left-wing Democrats are also enjoying their moment in the sun.
All Democrats are
perhaps most notably Senator Bernie Sanders, who is
This guy is so old and still... I respect that. Whatever the fuck you think about him, to still be this active politically in this age is unbelievable. Unbelievable. That is ridiculous, man. I couldn't do this when I was 30, man.
Independent but caucuses with the Democrats, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Since Donald Trump returned to office, Sanders and AOC have been crisscrossing the country.
Yeah, I agree. It's sad that the biggest counter to Trump is a very, very old Bernie Sanders. That's very sad.
Drawing crowds of...
AOC is hot. It's kind of bad for AOC. I'm going to be feminist for a sec. That probably if she runs for anything bigger than right now, she's going to be very looked at for her looks.
Thousands.
And oh man, she's fuckable. That's the sad thing. With Bernie, it's like, oh, let's look at his policies. But with her, nice tits. It's always hard for women.
On their fighting oligarchy tour, which has enabled them to push their progressive message, particularly their opposition to billionaires and corporate influence in US politics.
Honestly, I feel like if I was a US citizen, I would be for these two guys right now. I think that's where I will, with a distance, stand right now.
Despite them both being solidly on the left of the Democratic Party platform, they both enjoy considerable popularity. In fact, recent polling suggests that Sanders is the most popular political figure.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, makes total sense, right? The people understand he's the only guy who kind of speaks the truth. And I mean, this guy is just gone now. This guy is the biggest tool ever. What a fucking disgrace this guy is.
Figure in the country. While the net favorability of, for example, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and indeed the Democratic Party as a whole.
Being hot is a massive benefit in all life. I massively disagree with you. I think if you're a hot woman, I think that's massively wrong. If you're a hot woman in a leadership role, especially in politics, I think you get very easily overlooked. You get belittled for only your looks. I would not agree with that at all.
He's deeply in the red. While some Democratic strategists argue that the party's best move is to sit back and let Trump unravel himself, others say the key to rebuilding public support for the party is to take a leaf out of Sanders' book and embrace economic populism. And this looks like a sensible position to take when you consider that polling shows that raising taxes on large corporations and wealthy households is a really quite popular position. Nonetheless, there are several reasons to caution against a dramatic pivot to the left. For starters, Democrats should be wary of inferring too much from Mamdani's success, especially at the national level. New York is obviously more left-wing than most of America, and Mamdani was up against some arguably pretty soft competition in the scandal-ridden Andrew Cuomo. It's also worth noting that only about 1 million people voted in the recent Democratic primary.
1 million
and
people.
Even if Mamdani wins the actual election...
Only 1 million people vote in New York? Only 1 million people vote. 1 in 8 people vote. Los Angeles is only 4 million? That can't be true. Metropolitan area is 13. And Metropolitan New York is how much? Metropolitan, 24 million. Holy shit. Only 1 million people.
Which is due in early November. He probably won't
Democratic
need
primary.
that many votes.
Only Democrats
in large
won it.
part due to
Okay.
the fact
Okay, I
that New
didn't know
York's
that.
local elections happen
Okay.
on odd years,
Okay, capiche.
i.e. between the midterms and general elections. Turnout is reliably pretty rubbish and came in at just 23% in 2021.
23% turnout.
Second,
Wow,
while it's true that
that's
Sanders and
terrible.
AOC are remarkably
People are so
popular,
dumb with
when you
politics.
dig into the polling, you quickly realise it's not because of their left-wing policies. In fact, that Data for Progress poll we mentioned earlier in the video actually
Moderate voters see Bernie as authentic, true to his beliefs and consistent.
asked respondents why they perceived Sanders favourably or unfavourably. Interestingly,
And make
very
Sanders
few
20
people who
years younger
perceived
and you
Sanders
have a great
favourably
season of
cited his
America
left-wing
soon.
policies. Instead, the three most oft-recited reasons were he seems more authentic, he's more willing to challenge the political establishment, and he's consistent in his views. Conversely, the most oft-cited reason among those who perceived him unfavourably were indeed his left-wing policies, which was the main reason for nearly a third of voters who don't like
Okay, I don't
Sanders.
give two shits about
This
polling
implies
stuff.
that
It
Sanders'
changes
appeal
every day
is
anyway.
more about his apparent authenticity and anti-establishment politics, rather than his left-wing ideas. This could also be true for Mamdani. Sure, he's left-wing on certain issues, but perhaps his real appeal stems from the fact that he pitched himself as very much a political outsider, fighting against an archetypal establishment figure in Andrew Cuomo.
Which goes well
Similarly,
nowadays.
other polling suggests that left-wing positions, especially on cultural issues and immigration, just aren't that popular in America. In 2024,
Dude,
for
if I'm
instance,
this fresh at
Democrats were
83, man,
way
holy
to the
shit.
left of the median voter when it came to immigration and affirmative action, which definitely hurt them at the ballot
I haven't
box.
listened to Joe
However,
and
it's
Bernie. I
worth
would love to
mentioning
do
that
that.
left-wing
But
positions on
it's
social
3 hours
issues
long or some
might
shit,
become
right?
less unpopular if Trump overreaches.
I'd love to watch
and
that, yeah.
even if left-wing policies remain unpopular, left-wing
And I respect
economic
Joe, man. You guys always shit on Joe, man. Joe invited Bernie Sanders, man.
policies
You guys always shit
generally
on him.
poll pretty well.
I'm a big Joe. I love
Sanders'
Joe Rogan.
hallmark economic
Mostly
policies,
he
for
does a lot of
instance,
mistakes,
include
but I like
higher
him.
taxes
2
on
hours,
the
2 hours,
rich,
okay.
a higher minimum wage, and the expansion of Medicare
I like Joe
are
Rogan.
all pretty popular. Bloomberg polling
right
from
now,
last
fuck
year,
that.
for instance, shows that 69% of Americans support higher taxes on anyone making more than $400,000.
70% want that, really.
51% support raising the corporation tax rate. And Data for Progress polling found that 64% support a $17 minimum wage,
So everyone wants this left-wing shit. Then why don't you vote for it?
up
Everybody
from
wants this.
$7.25 at the
70%.
moment. This obviously
Fuck are you
suggests
idiots
that
doing?
left-wing Democrats should focus more on economic issues rather than cultural issues.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, no one disagrees with that, right? That is stuff we need to talk about and not fucking transgenders dancing in kindergartens. But this is where I always believe it's all fake. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter if the Republicans or Democrats win. They're all in the same boat, man. They want you to be divided and fuck you up. Look at the transgenders. That's the real problem. Yeah, don't look at the real problems. They don't give a fuck, man. They're all trying to fucking confuse you, man. And if Bernie even gets close, he's gonna get shot, man. Oh, Bernie had a heart attack. He killed himself, guys. What happened?
But perhaps the big
all the
takeaway
fucking
from
same,
Sanders and Mamdani's success is that Democrats should present themselves as anti-establishment, which is something Trump has done very successfully in the past, and authentic. This speaks to both the limits of poll-driven politics and a big risk for Democrats trying to move to the centre.
Do you believe in the third world order like the
centrist pivot
Rothschilds?
is
I believe in facts and logic, and I will never go down a rabbit hole like the fucking, what's his name? George Soros. He's eating children. I want to stay factual, and it literally is proven now how oligarchies, how big CEOs, how big companies with money have massive influence on this stuff, how they can influence policies that help them and stuff. I would even go as far as saying this. I think that conspiracy theories are another tool to make everything go weird. Many often in my life, I heard this, right? Hey man, rich people are way too strong, right? We should talk about this. Maybe this is an issue we should look at society, how the wealth distribution is really a problem. Yeah, and George Soros is eating children. And then you very quickly, like, pull it down to something stupid. You have, like, this good starting point of, hey, we have to talk about this. But then I feel like conspiracy theorists, they always pull it into something dumb. And then it helps the enemy again. The rich fucking man. It helps them again. Because now you wash up in a serious topic with dumb shit, man. It's like when you have, like, protests. Like a protest that in its core has a good meaning. But then you have the journalists only looking at the crazies. They go like, ah, I'm Wolverine. It's like, you know.
perceived by the electorate as inauthentic, it'll probably backfire. Now, when talking about topics like these, it's
And now he
important
does the sponsoring. Oh, this fine specimen is still watching. Check out this research to see more.